Welcome back. It is me. It is the Cyber Warrior. This is Cyber Warrior Studios. And I know you're all here for another amazing episode of Security Happy Hour because we're finally back. I took a hiatus, had to go away, do some stuff with family. Pretty busy. And we're going to get into it here as we talk about the path forward and just going through the motions and figuring out life. So stay tuned. And I promise we'll be back in about 10 seconds. See, and we're back. It's only 10 seconds. So look, anyways, no, it's been a long couple months. I've been away. I kind of got away from social media a little bit. I haven't been posting much on a lot of anything. Um, and then within the past few weeks, I started posting more motivational content again in shorts on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and things of that nature, and different posts on LinkedIn. But it's been a long road, and it's been a long road for this channel and for this show. And I'm glad to be back. I need this. All right, it's been way too long since I've seen all of you lovely people. So to that, skull, cheers. I love you all. But uh, you know, when we think about our careers, when we think about life, when we think about the routes we want to take, I've had some interesting conversations recently. Really interesting. I had one today with a friend of mine, and they were debating whether or not to take another job. And I told them go for it because not because it was a step down, it was actually a step up. It was a promotion or at least a raise. It was more so because they knew they wanted to do it. They were just second guessing themselves. They were worried about one piece of the job versus the whole picture. And that's something that I think we need to take into consideration more as we move throughout life. Too many people focus on one minute detail. They'll focus on one, uh, oh, I don't have the flexibility. I may or may not have the flexibility. I may or may not be able to do this. But it's like one piece out of a larger picture. And so ultimately, when we look at life, when we look at our careers, a lot of it has to come down to what is going to be best for you and your family. And I get it. There are certain aspects that you can't lose, right? For some people, it's I need 30 days of PTO, or I need this type of insurance, or I need flexibility. I need to work from home, whatever the case may be. There are things that you just cannot give up. But in the grand scheme of things, in the make or break world that we're in, does that one thing truly matter? And Infinite, actually, AI, you are absolutely correct. They focus on reasons not to do it, not to take that job, not to make that change. I have talked to so many people over the past few months, um, that are like, "Well, I wanna I wanna get a new job, but I'm scared," or "My job isn't paying me enough," or this, that, the third, or "I wanna change careers, but I'm scared." One, fear is always gonna be there in everything we do in life. There's always gonna be something to be afraid of. But I choose not to let fear hold me back, personally. Because when you allow your fear to control you, when you allow these little things, to affect how you go about your life, then you end up missing out on life. You end up missing out on some really big things. Uh, Ultimately, it comes down to like risk versus reward. And so you're not going to get anywhere in life if you're afraid to take a risk, if you're afraid to make change, because it is those risks that help us become who we are. They help us get ahead. They help us in our careers and in life in general. Everything's a risk in life. Everything you do, whether it's having kids, getting married, going into the military, playing sports, there is nothing you can do in life that is not a risk because everything has cause and effect. There's always going to be something that can hold you back. So you have to consider the, in the grand scheme of things, where you want to go in life. Can you make real world examples of you taking risks personally? Every job I've changed. I've left comfort for better jobs, not knowing whether or not it was truly going to be better. The first job I got, retired out of the army. Let's start there. So when I retired out of the army, it was for medical reasons. I got medically retired. Now the army was comfortable. Pay isn't the greatest. Um, and yeah, I was deploying. I was going to the field. I was away from family. There was a lot of negatives to it also, but it was still a change because I didn't know. I didn't have any jobs lined up when I got out. I was not necessarily prepared for retirement. So it was going to be a risk, especially when you're married and have kids. So I spoke to my wife about it. Me and my kids had talked, and we didn't know where we were going to live. We didn't know what we were going to do. Ultimately, we ended up coming back to where I grew up. Stayed with my mother in law for a little while. And my first job out of the military, I was making pennies. I was making like 60 grand a year. And at the time, I had a degree in certifications, but it meant for nothing because in this industry, in cybersecurity, they wanted enterprise experience. And due to the work I was doing in the army, I couldn't give them that. I could tell them I was certified. I could tell them I had a degree, but I couldn't give them enterprise experience. So I took the first job I could get because everybody else either didn't call me back or said no based on lack of experience. So first job I got was 60 grand a year out of the army. And we rented a house. Again, it was risk to rent a house. Because when you're only making 60 and you've got car payments and insurance and bills and utilities, it's not, it's not a lot of money. Especially when you have kids and you got to worry about food and gas. I was driving quite a way. My first job, I was probably about a 45-minute job, 45 minutes away from me. I had to drive, give or take. And when they ended up moving further, so it was even an hour after that. My second job, I got a raise. It was a good job. And I left comfort for a chance at doing offensive security. Didn't know whether or not I was going to be good at it. It had been something I worked at for a while. The money was better, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I was going to be good at it or be able to keep that job. And so that led to more changes. I ended up getting another job after that for a pay cut. Uh, I wanted something different. I wasn't necessarily happy there. And so ended up taking a pay cut to go somewhere else, which again is a risk because are you going to be able to afford to live? Are you going to be able to afford to pay for everything? Uh, I've started several businesses. Creating content is a risk, especially when you put so much time and money into it. It's an expense and it's a risk. Uh, because is it going to pay off? Is it going to be worth it? Now it depends on your reasons for doing it. Mine is more so to help others. I care less about the money aspect of it. It's more so as long as I'm making an impact. Uh, for everything else, it's one of those things where you just have to be willing to uh, understand that things happen. Again, I've started and registered one, two, three, four businesses. There's a reason I don't own an actual business. I suck at sales for one, or at least cold calling. So when I wanted to start my own consulting firm, I realized that wasn't going anywhere because within 6 months to a year, it flatlined, went nowhere. But if it would have taken off, that'd have been great. But I just learned where it was a learning experience for me. Um, and again, I take risks every day. I played football my entire life. That's a risk. Joining the military is a risk. Everything we do, it's not always about careers. It's about what we do in life in general. Um, so my, I'm all cut up. Like I play with knives. What can I say? Like everything I do has a calculated risk. Sometimes it's stupid. Sometimes it's just for fun, and I see how far it can go before it gets bad. But uh, for me, risk is part of the process. But like I said, that's everything in life. I could I can die tomorrow. I'll know I've done everything I can to give the best to my family, and that's what matters to me. So going forward with this show, with uh, content, things like that, it's always about, um, you know, you do what's right for you in your heart, and in your soul, and you also do the best that you can. So I'm gonna get back next week, and we're gonna do have more guests on. We're gonna talk more security. But today, because it's been so long since I did my Walk With Me podcast, which I do need to get back to and bring back, I wanted to kind of encompass that in this episode, in this welcome back episode, because of how long it's been since I've done this show and that podcast. The podcast alone, it's been quite some time. But you know, I, we have to be able and be willing to help others, and that is a something that I think a lot of us are missing, uh, because we've become isolated, secluded, especially in this industry, right? A lot of us are introverts and don't want to deal with people, or don't want to deal with people who don't understand what we're talking about. Uh, and we have a different way of communicating. Um, and so, with that, you have to take into consideration everything. And that is why I will always do things outside of computers and cybersecurity. It used to be my life, and then I realized that I needed to be more and do more. Um, and that's what I've been doing. So the past month and a half ish that I've been gone, I've been coaching football. I've been going to my kids' football games. My other, I got another kid that's in marching band, going to those games. So because he marches at halftime for high school. So there's a lot of things that have been going on, and I had to step away and prioritize what was important to me. And again, that's a risk because this show is vital to me. Well, I can't say vital. This show is important to me. And when everything else, when I stopped doing consistent content on YouTube like Motivation Mondays and Tech Tuesdays and things like that, this show has stood the test of time for me. It is the one thing that I know every week I'll be doing. So to put it on in hiatus, to not do it for a while, um, meant less people may see it. Less people may want to see it. People may not care anymore. And so I had to figure out what was important, and it was family. And so is the risk going to pay off of me stepping away and now coming back? We'll see. This show ain't going anywhere. I'll still do it every week, and I'm going to continue to do it. And we're going to have new guests and new people coming on. I'm going to be trying to reach out to different people, but it's not going to be um, it- it's not going to just be the same old same. We're gonna spice things up. We're gonna try to bring new faces on. It's still gonna be prioritized around bringing new people into the industry, and that's gonna be the priority. And especially if I can get people that have never been seen, never talked at a conference. Maybe they are more experienced. Maybe they've been in for 5, 10 years, but they've never talked. Nobody knows who they are, and they've just kind of coasted through. They don't post on social media. I'm gonna try to find them and get their voices heard. And it's because I think we celebrate those who have been in it so long, and everybody knows who they are, right? The Brian Krebs, the um, uh, anybody, anybody who has a show or who's always at talks, the Jason Streets, the John Hammonds. I love them all. Don't get it twisted. I have so much respect for them. Uh, but I want people who've never been heard from for whatever reason. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they never got through an RFP to speak at a conference. Whatever the reason is, I want them heard, and I want them heard because I think we all have a voice, and we all need to share our viewpoints on things because we're all going to have a different viewpoint, and I think that'll help propel our industry forward and into the future. Because when we sit back and we talk to the same people and hear the same things over and over and over again from people, not only does it get repetitive, but we quit listening. and we're like, I'm just going to do it my way. And I want you to think about it like this: growing up, when you're a kid, you think you know better than your parents. It's why we make mistakes because we don't listen. And so even when you think you're doing the right thing, or you think, oh, I know better. I've done that. I was told not to go buy another car, not to trade mine in. I've been told many times how to improve, how to do things right, and I always thought I knew better. I had to learn the hard way. And so when you hear the same things over and over, you're kind of like you're a broken record. And so I want new people, new voices that you've never heard from before. I want people that are just coming out of college. Maybe they're still in college because I love learning and figuring out what colleges are teaching these days to know what value they're bringing to the industry, what value they're delivering to all of us. And so I think that is something that we need to do more of is really look at the the holistic picture of who we talk to, of who we listen to, and really make sure that it is moving us in the right direction. Um, Not to say that the John Hammonds of the world aren't worth listening to, just that I think we need new. Um, it, we just need a different perspective because things aren't as easy as people think. Getting into this career field is extremely difficult. Trying to move up is extremely difficult. There's a lot of there's still a lot of back and forth about certifications and degrees and things of that nature within our industry, and within a lot of other industries too, I'm sure, but specifically ours with cybersecurity. You're going to have these competing voices for whether or not certifications are worth it or degrees are worth it. Uh, when you have the school of YouTube and things that are free, why do I need to pay for X, Y, and Z? So I want to hear others' perspectives on these. That way, going forward, we have other views. We have the ability to sit down and listen to how other people are trying to get in or have gotten in and what their experiences have been. Because only then can we truly change. Can we truly become better? And can we truly learn? If we don't do that, it just becomes noise. And so I think that's a big part of it. And again, going forward, it's gonna be an interesting, I don't know, few months, interesting next year, to see how the industry changes with more and more AI, with more and more differences with the way Microsoft and ransomware and everything else is changing. Our critical infrastructure, OT, IoT, cell phones, just everything, and the rate at which it's changing, and the rate at which it is being broken. Um, I think it is only going to increase the risk footprint within our lives. We already see on a daily basis somebody else's data was hacked. Identity theft and things like that from stolen data. Some of the largest companies in the world, the ones that you would think are the most secure, are getting breached. So it's it's going to be an interesting next year for sure. Just see how things play out. I don't necessarily believe regulation's gonna fix everything, and I know a lot of people want to go to regulation, but I've read some policies put in place in some of these organizations to try to abide by regulation, and either it's outdated verbiage in policy, or it's let's just it's like doing a pen test, but you can only pen test a subset of the network because the rest of it will get damaged. That then what's the point? Because then someone's going to come in and they're going to damage that network anyways. They're going to bring it down, or they're going to find a way in and get your most critical data. The power grid is up in the air right now as far as how secure is it. So I think it's going to be an interesting while. It really is. Um, well, at the same time, feel free to ask questions. Let me know your thoughts. on what you think. And yeah, AI, repetitive, redundant, repetitious, and I don't know that last word. Look, you're too smart for me. What do you think about companies with people in cybersec, high burnout rate, yet high bar for entry, low balling salaries for newcomers? Adamant, this is interesting because one, we're seeing a shift in the industry. So go back just a few years, salaries were high, and we're talking for directors, CISOs, managers, seniors. Salaries were on the rise, and now if you look at the job market across the board, salaries are being cut. So if you're in a good position and you're making good money, finding a job that's going to pay that same amount is going to be hard to do unless you move up. But even then, it's hard to do because didn't want to sneeze in the microphone. But that's because there's we went into a it was a critical career field, but it wasn't at the same time because companies weren't taking it serious. The burnout rate is ridiculous because in order to succeed in this industry and succeed in this career field, you have to do more than your job. You end up working really long hours, um, and sometimes it's not even an emergency. Uh, a company can sit there and say, "Oh, if they can't hit Facebook because some part of the firewall decided to block everything, all of a sudden it's an emergency and we can't work." Meanwhile, it's 8 o'clock at night. Who the heck should be working at 8 o'clock at night for some of these companies? They're 9 to 5 jobs, legitimately. But somebody decided to get online at 8 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden now it's an emergency because one system can't get out. And then they find problems with more and more systems. So that's where burnout's coming from is some of this stuff being on call and everything being considered an emergency. And, the high bar for entry, I have conflicting opinions about that. So I think some MSSPs and some organizations that have a strong cybersecurity staff, meaning seniors, mid levels, things like that, should be able and willing to bring in juniors that have one of two sets of requirements. Either you have if you don't have a degree or certifications, you should, at minimum, have some type of lab work to your name that you've done at home, or have been in the IT industry. So help desk, sysadmin, things like that. Because one, a junior cybersecurity person, 9 times out of 10, I have seen make more than your help desk. So for with that being the case, I would expect anybody who's going to be an analyst or a junior in the industry to at least have a basic foundational knowledge of IT, that being operating systems and or networking. So having that background. Now, if you come from a degree in certifications or certifications or both, then it kind of sets the stage for you to get in a little bit easier, but not much. Some of these companies still want to hire they say unicorns, but in reality, um, what they want is people that can hit the ground running and then not have to teach them anything. Maybe because they're already overworked. So to bring in a junior and try to train them. So it is very difficult. And the longer I've been in management and kind of seeing how this has played out, I don't necessarily agree with it. I think there are still situations and companies that should bring in junior talent and be able to, especially the ones that have been around for ages and have fully staffed security teams. And they're like, oh, we're hiring a junior, but they want them to be a mid level, just pay them a junior salary. So I think that's the bigger issue. It's not that it's not that we can't bring in juniors. I think it's that the the idea of what a junior is needs to be adjusted. Um, Lowballing salaries is always going to be an issue. Know your worth is what I tell everybody. Um, and these days you're seeing more and more companies post what the salary band is on their job postings. Not all of them. I still see some to this day that aren't, but you're seeing more and more. And so apply for the jobs that you feel you're valued in. And again, salary isn't everything. It helps, but it's not everything. Um, I don't think the burnout rate's going to change anytime soon. Not unless people are getting more fully staffed. But you'll see a lot of organizations will cut the first thing they'll cut, especially if it's an organization, not an MSP or an MSSP, is the IT and security staff. They're the first ones to go. So I think the burnout rate is that's not going to change. Um, I'm hearing a lot of talk of legacy SCADA systems. They want to put the legacy system on the net. Cybersecurity is going to be in demand if they don't want another Stuxnet. It could be in demand all at once. It's not going to change. A lot of companies, and this is what AI. What I think you see this, and so you understand because you've been around as long as I have in this industry that there are older systems that are used as security through obscurity. So you will still find in some banks, some critical infrastructure, old systems. We're talking Windows XP, Windows 2000. Um, I think some companies I've seen over the years, even probably in the past year and a half, still have some Vista systems running out there. Server 2012, Windows 3.1. Yes, that's actually been in the news. There are systems still running that. I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, there was a airline that was running an extremely old system, which is why they didn't go down when the CrowdStrike thing happened. So you have to look at, yeah, Southwest. So you have to look at the fact that even if you take these legacy SCADA systems and you or any legacy system and put it on the internet, um, the fact is if other systems were already there, then there's already a way to that system. They're not always completely air gapped. They should be, but they're not. And if you put them on, yeah, if you put them on the internet, they become bigger targets. But I think the target's already there. I really do. I think the target's already there. I think they've already there's potential that things are already sitting dormant on those systems, just waiting, like Stuxnet did, waiting till it finds the right one, the right PLC to attack. So eh, it's going to be an interesting. I don't know if I don't know if they're going to put skate on the internet. I don't think they should, but I don't know if it'll necessarily have the effect or the impact that people think it will either. Um, unless it opens up that trigger point, which is very likely and very possible. I just don't know. I don't do enough with the skate aside to really know how bad it is. I can only assume or hypothesize. But but yeah, the security industry is going to get real intriguing in the next 6 months. Is that with IoT and AI and data? It's going to grow, but it's not at the same time. I understand your point, AI, that you say with all of this, cybersecurity is going to grow. We already hit a cybersecurity boom, and then it plateaued, and then we started seeing the layoffs. Unless things change for organizations, um, or we have a way to convey that we are more than just an expense, then I don't know if that's going to happen. One of the first reasons is because no matter how good people's cybersecurity staff is or isn't, we see breaches to this day on your larger organizations. Things like SolarWinds. I mean, that wasn't that long ago. So I just don't. It is going to grow in the manufacturing. I don't know. I don't know, man. Maybe. There'll be. Let's see. There will be a high demand for senior cybersecurity engineers for a long time before the demand for juniors will grow. Unfortunately, too many companies are still behind the curve. Yeah, but even then, how do you get to be a senior? The only thing getting to the point of senior gets you right now, especially if that starts going back up for the demand. If the demand for it starts going back up, is they will basically be able to write their own salary within limits. Um, and juniors will always get the shaft. I don't see the junior area growing anytime soon. That's going to take a while. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, I think it's still possible. It's just harder as a junior to break in than it is for a mid or a senior to find a position. Sometimes you got to take a pay cut to find something better. Very weird legacy systems out there that don't exactly. Anonymous with there are also very weird legacy systems out there that don't exactly fit in with SCADA, like POTS mainframes. Yeah, that control crazy things like door locks, traffic lights, and fire alarm systems. Um, yeah, I can't deny that. I've seen it. I've seen systems where if you ran, there was a lock, a pin pad lock, and that lock was technically on the network. But if you scanned it because it had an IP, if that got scanned, it killed the lock, and so you couldn't open it anymore. I'm sure there was a key or something, but you couldn't open it, which means it wasn't going to register any logs, wasn't going to do anything like that. So yeah, those systems suck, and people do they do some weird segmentation where it can still talk to other things. They don't necessarily block out and do it correctly, and so you end up with systems that just aren't secure. It's kind of like printers in a way because I'm sure there's backdoors on those locks. I'm sure there's backdoors on those servers. And I'm gonna touch on that topic here in a second. But with printers, you can't put endpoint security on them. How? For one, and so they become a target. So you have to secure and segment your printers and only allow certain communications. And even then, printers became a target for a long time. Um, but on the note of you know eh, just kind of dealing with locks and everything else, you have vendor systems that if a vendor, so let's take this one step further. We rely on hospitals, especially, and I'm sure critical infrastructure, things like SCADA and POTS and all these other systems, rely on a vendor to maintain those, the servers that control them. Meaning you cannot administrate them, you cannot put on endpoint security, you have no admin rights to that system. The best you can do is reboot it or do the logging on it or configuration, but you can't actually add any software. It is what it is. The vendor maintains and updates it. So what we're seeing and part of the problem within our industry is you have these companies, especially ones that deal with hospitals and critical infrastructure, where they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be around forever. I'll give you lifetime updates. Just spend $10 billion on this platform, and you're good to go. It'll run everything. It'll do everything. Whatever." Then 5 years later, 3 to 5 years later, they go bankrupt. Now they can't update it anymore. So now the hospitals and the critical infrastructure, because they cannot get in, they don't necessarily have any of the privileges to update, maintain, do anything to these systems. They become legacy and outdated. This is why you see Server 2012 or 2008 or Windows 3.1 or things like that within the different areas of infrastructure is because they bought something. They were promised this company was always going to support it. And with that, when that company goes bankrupt, now they got to figure out how they're going to invest another, 5 billion, 10 billion dollars to replace it. And so that's what's ended up happening. So there needs to be there's two, potentially three ways I can think of to fix this. The first one is you still have to be able to provide administration on that, meaning whoever you sell that product to, that platform, you need to have people that get trained on it and become administrators, meaning they can update the operating system if need be and not wait on some gold disk image. once a quarter. They should be able to put endpoint security on it, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's Defender, CrowdStrike, Sophos, doesn't matter. They should be able to implement whatever their business or enterprise license endpoint security is on that, and then you know go from there. The second thing is, and William Bailey said it, proprietary solution, no code escrow. Um, or the first company went bankrupt and the new company won't provide any security update patch until the customer buys the new product at the lifetime price all over again. Yeah. So, you know, uh, making the code open source, um, or having some type of, if you're going bankrupt, here's the keys to the kingdom type of deal, right? It should be part of the contract or part of regulation that if you as an organization go bankrupt and can no longer provide updates to these systems, you should have to relinquish either the code or the keys to the kingdom for the administration of those systems. Um, th- I mean, really, those are the only two ways I see that getting fixed. I said there were potentially three, and right now I can't think of a third way. There may be a third way. If you know another way to address those situations, please let me know. Put in the comments, things like that. I don't know any other way that we can go about fixing the that type of uh, uh, that type of situation. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any ideas how we can address it, let me know. Because I just don't know of anything. Um, it's going to we need a fix, and I just don't know what it is. I think right now we are still, unfortunately, the people that try to help are still greedy, so they want to help, but for a cost, and that's part of human nature, but it's also part of the problem. Um, I understand, but you should still be able to give people the ability to modify the system. But this also goes back to the right to repair. I mean, if you think about it, um, where Apple and all these warranty companies were like, oh, if you open it up, you can't buy parts, you can't do anything. It became a hassle. So that's where the right to repair and stuff like that comes into play as well. You should have the ability to repair these systems and just call them for support versus losing out on access. Um, so I don't know. It's an interesting concept for sure. Let's see. Ah, dang it. There we go. I highly recommend going the sysadmin platform infrastructure engineer to get the experience, and it will make it much easier to shift into security with that experience knowledge. Absolutely, Griffin. Uh, sysadmin, system engineer, infrastructure engineer, dealing with networking, anything like that. Those all really will help to break into the industry, break into cybersecurity. But even then, for some of those roles, you have to go some type of junior role first. Um, so whether or not people can do that, again, it all depends on where you're at in life, in your career, um, and your income requirements and things like that. Whether or not you can make that shift into a junior role, even even as a systems engineer or a sysadmin. Um, it, so it's going to vary, but I agree. I think that's one of the best ways to get the experience and come up into cybersecurity. I don't disagree with that at all. So, um, but yeah, I mean, I think AI is right. Um, there's going to be some intriguing changes coming from critical infrastructure, SCADA, POTS. Anonymous said it, bad segmentation, bad security practices. But I also want people to understand that when IT, when computers, when networks, when things like that were first designed and created, it wasn't created with security in mind. And unfortunately, the people that design these things still don't do that. Secure coding, even though it gets taught in some of your colleges, people still don't understand or know secure code. You still, because of how many multitudes of lines of code there are to develop programs, and operating systems, you end up with issues regardless. Um, just because of the CI/CD process and QA, people miss things. Um, AI is created by man, your chat GPTs and things like that. So those are going to have implicit biases in them, even when you're looking at code. I was looking at chat GPT to come up with a KQL query. I could have used like MindSpark or a bunch of other things, but I tried chat GPT first. And even then, the things it was giving me wouldn't work because it was looking at the wrong tables for the query and it couldn't pull the information. So, um, or not the information I was looking for. So, all of this stuff still has processes to go through. But anyways, as I was saying, because of the way things are designed for make the blinky lights blink and make it work, security becomes an afterthought. And when we start putting band-aids on things, we never actually stop the bleeding. If we stopped the bleeding, if we started designing things more securely out the gate, then it would be less of an issue. For instance, ParrotSec, I used to dabble a lot with different Linux distros. Backtrack, Kali, Ubuntu, Debian, Red Hat, CentOS, um, Arch. I've used a few different distros in my time. Mint, I think I played with a little bit. Mainly Debian-based distros, but I played with a few. And what I found was ParrotSec was the first distribution I used where it was built with security in mind. So even though it was an offensive security distribution, they still had a home version for it, but it was made with security in mind. So it still did IPsec tunnels. It still did. Um, you didn't have a root account. Kali um, didn't change to a user account until after a few editions of it. Whereas ParrotSec, from the time I started using that, you had a root account. You were able to sudo into root, but your main account that you logged into that with was a user. You couldn't log in as root, so you had to know how to get to it. So yeah, I think that was one of the only Linux distros that I used where VPN was there immediately. Granted, it was Tor, but it was there. Um, what else? You had to log in as a user. So I don't know. It was just it had more and it was more set up for people that were trying to be more secure. Um, one of the only. Other than that, you for the rest of them, you have to know how to configure and work the operating system and install packages just to have the base security models there. So, um, it's food for thought. Um, I feel there is a saturation of junior level cybersecurity professionals. However, the gatekeeping, bad recruitment, and unrealistic qualifications. Supply demand ratio is high for Sec Plus, but low for CISP. Um, and even lower for GX, CISA, CISM, and SIP. One, which GX, my guy? Are you talking about any of them? I hate when people say GX. When I see GX, I'm thinking, do you want you talking GSEC? So basically, SANS is equivalent of a Security Plus, or are you talking something different? But anywho, uh, there is a saturation of junior level cybersecurity professionals. The problem is, even with that saturation, none of them are getting jobs. Well, I can't say none, but it's really hard to get a job as a junior because, to your point, gatekeeping, bad recruitment, and unrealistic qualifications. So you're seeing jobs right now, even junior level jobs, where they say, "Oh, you need to have 3 to 5 years of experience with X, Y, and Z technology, plus a CISP, plus a security plus a degree." One, you can't even get a CISP without experience. I mean, you can have. I think they have. It's called associate, if I'm not mistaken, but you still need to have experience to get a CISP. And the cost of a lot of these certifications is going up. So if you're in college or transitioning career fields, maybe because you want to be able to make more money and you really enjoy security, whatever your reasons are, but you're struggling right now financially, getting a certification right now is extremely difficult for a lot of people. I know costs used to be as low as like $100, I think, and there were lifetime certifications. And now we're seeing things get upwards of 4, 5, 600. And let's not even talk about SANS because SANS should be paid for by your company. Just to go to a SANS course is like 10 grand. Now, granted, that covers the test too, but it's like $10,000. So that should be a company paid thing. CISP, I consider CISP a senior engineer, like a senior level cybersecurity person slash management, sir. And the only reason I say like a senior or even like a about to be promoted mid level person should have it is because at those levels you should be able to talk the business side as well as the technical side, or at least be learning that process if you're going to move into either management or dealing with executives in some way, shape, or form. Because a lot of times they want to understand the numbers, the stats, and the business side of things. What's the business risk if they allow, if they don't patch this vulnerability, or don't upgrade their operating system, or open up this port on their firewall. They want to know the business risk behind it, so I think, dude, if anybody allows 3389, they need smack. Although it is out there, I do know companies with it. Shodan will show them to you all. But yeah, I think the CISP being required for like, hey, I need you to have 3 years experience. You should have a CISP, and you're going to be getting 80 grand a year. Like, no, no. Well, at the same time, I think anybody who is, I'm more adverse to vendor certifications because I think for those of us in this industry, if we're going to if we use a product enough, you're going to learn it ultimately. You get that tribal knowledge and you understand how it operates. Um, and that's with anybody who really enjoys the tech and engineering and cybersecurity. But if the vendor search, especially now when you're looking at it from a partnership standpoint, from working with different companies, um, I will never agree. I don't agree anymore with vendor certifications. I think it should be, you know, um, training. Sure, go through these courses or come down to a boot camp. Got you. We'll train you on the software. But to sit there and be like, hey, you can't necessarily install this as an organization like professional services until you have our certifications like that. eh, I don't agree with it. Send me to a course, but don't tell me I got to get certified. Like, I just, it rubs me the wrong way. How about Microsoft certs? One, there's a million of them. Two, they change all the time. And three, as long as you have the knowledge, I don't care about the cert. Truly. Um, I've taken Microsoft certs at one point. I had quite a few server certs in Office and Windows and things like that. Again, before security was even security, so I don't think there was any cybersecurity certifications at the time when I was in high school. But I don't. I don't know. Microsoft starts rub me the wrong way. Again, if you have the knowledge and the experience, and you say, if you can tell me how you built a lab or stood up an Azure infrastructure or what have you, that means a lot more to me than you saying, oh yeah, I passed my SC 200 or whatever it is. I just because I know too many people that are paper certified, and if you don't know what that means, it's somebody that is extremely book smart. They could pass any test. But when you're asked to actually do the job, they can't do it because they don't have any practical knowledge. Um, I just I don't think that um, from a certification standpoint, I've worked with too many paper champions. One of my senior NCOs was a paper champion. Dude had the same certifications I had, but I could, no matter how I tried to explain to him why something wouldn't work, he fought me on it. I'm like, dude, okay, you do it, and he wouldn't because he couldn't. So Um, I could care less about printers. This is why I'm not in support, my guy. I just replace mine. I don't even try to fix them. I just buy new ones. No, I don't think you knew them. Yeah, we can talk later about it though. because that was a whole situation. I got myself in trouble on that with him and my commander because of him. So yeah, that was a whole situation. Is it cheap? Yeah, it is cheaper. Yeah, it is definitely cheaper to buy new printers instead of ink. Um, but that's why I like my printer because I got the one where instead of buying ink cartridges, you buy the ink bottles and fill up the tanks. I have had the same ink in my tank for since I got it, and I haven't run out, and it prints like a charm. So it doesn't like wireless printing though. It can only handle. I don't know if it's because of my wireless network or what, but it can only handle so much data. So like if I go to print out like two pictures and it has to send it all to the printer, it doesn't do it. It times out over wireless. So I got to actually go come down to my desktop, plug in the printer, and print it up from hardline. Dude, I ain't doing. Look, man, I don't, I don't have enough time on my hands to do a print server and like a whole lab and everything anymore. I just don't. I've been doing this too long. I do enough of it at work. A brother laser, yeah, laser printers were solid. If I did only black and whites, that'd be good. The color printers aren't as nice for pictures. The color lasers, they're great if you're just doing like office stuff and stuff for school. But my wife is all about pictures and stuff like that. All the cool kids are using toners. Man, I used to see toners explode in the army all the time. People were stupid. I used to have to clean up toner cartridges. That sucked. Um, man, that stuff never came out. Always got on your hands too. But yeah, so we got about 8 minutes left. Any other questions before we kind of start to wrap this up? Because if not, I'm gonna wrap it up and drink more beer and kind of relax. I'm on PTO. That I got some final PTO words for y'all too. But we'll see. So my team, the team I coach, we went to the first playoff game. I forget how many games we won. I think it was like 3 or 4. Went to the first playoff game and then lost. But the team we played was they're ridiculously big. Let's see. Yeah, I know you were in Alpha Company. So yeah, football was good. But that's kind of it was well worth it. The break, being able to be there for my kids and coach and be at every practice and every game, it was worth it. It was well worth it. Like I said, sometimes things got to give. I can't take a month and a half worth of vacation time. I might get fired for that one, but I can step away from this for a little while and be there for my kids. So definitely worth it. But saying that, as I said, I just started PTO today. First day of PTO. Take your damn PTO seriously. Um, if you're not taking time off, you're not mentally recharging yourself. We like to think go go go, and we're always going to be fine. But eventually, you hit that brick wall, and you're going to either burn out or you're going to become depressed. Your body's going to break down on you. Your mind's going to break down on you. Something. Take your PTO because you can only be good at your job and be supportive to your family and be there for your family um, if you are mentally well and if you're not burnt out. Um, so you have to take that time, take your PTO, rest, recharge, and turn off your damn notifications for work. Mine aren't turned off. I'm just ignoring them. But yes, turn them off. If it's an emergency, they'll call or text you. But it better be an emergency if I get a call from work. It better be like the whole place is burning down and they need me. Space Tacos, I'm glad to see you too. I'm always glad to have you in chat. You, William Bailey, everybody here. I love you all. We got 38 people watching. I don't know where, but we got 38 people, so that's always good to have. Uh, but yeah, take your time for you. And again, that part of that is one, do not um PTO is for you. Like, don't let somebody deny your PTO. Take it. It's basically their warning. That hey, I'm taking time off. But be considerate of your teammates also. One of the reasons it took me so long to get PTO is because as a manager, I had to make sure my team was set up for success and able to do the job without me being there. And so it took some time to have the right people on staff and the number of people I needed to be able to step away comfortably. So when you're in that technical role, just don't screw over your team member. Like if PTO should be first come first serve, right? Especially coming up to the holidays. So if your buddy takes PTO for a week and you're like, I'm going to take the same week. Let's think about this now. Let's be realistic, because then when your boss says no, you can't do that, it's going to be, well, why not? Well, because I need a staff. Like I need somebody here, and so um, be considerate of your teammates. First come first serve PTO is how I look at things. But again, with that being said, it is, don't let them deny you. When you say prepare the others, AI, it's actually true. I'm letting you know I'm taking time off. I'm not asking for your approval. I'm letting you know. So, but set your teammates up, set your team up for success. Um, you're on PTO, but can you log on anyways? Yeah, well, William, I tell them no. Some roles are like PTO when the customer doesn't need anything. Or hey, yeah, you're on PTO, but can you log on anyways? No, you see, I when I take PTO, it is legitimately I'm out. Like I'm out. I'm not I'm not logging in. Again, now if you text or call me and it's an emergency and you absolutely need something, I'll be there. But it better be an emergency. Like you better not be calling me just because this machine can't access YouTube. Like no. Sorry. Not my monkeys, not my circus. I got people that can fix that. Don't call me. So, yeah. But otherwise, look, Snowman, I know you were late. B Team Replay, my guy. For all those watching after or whatever, I do have cyberwarriorstudios.com, as you've been seeing run down there. I am on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and everywhere else. If you want to support the show, head to cyberwarriorstudios.com. There is merchandise, there is Cash App and PayPal and everything else like that. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can subscribe. I don't do anything special for you, not gonna lie. It's just because you love the show and want to help out. Um, Other than that, look, I do this for y'all, and I'm going to continue to do it whether or not I make anything from it. I just do it because I love y'all. So y'all take care. You have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Happy Friday Day, and I will catch you all next week with brand new episode, brand new guest, and an amazing episode of Security Happy Hour. So y'all take care, and I love you.